Hi, everybody. Welcome to the SOS Salon Business Success Podcast, where we're about building brands to survive while helping people to thrive. And the two really go hand in hand because, your business can't grow unless you choose to grow. And right now, we are in a growing year and a growing capacity. And I bet all of us can say there are probably 5 things that we've learned this year that we didn't know how to do prior to 2020. You should be proud of that. You should kind of just take some pride in that right now. So we do like to design with our clients. And in this podcast, you're going to hear ways to be able to build your brand. But ultimately, what you're going to hear are some people skills so that you feel more confident to thrive in what it is you're doing and not feel so overbeared by what's going on this year. Because the truth is, and you've heard this probably on some of my previous podcasts with other guests, a lot of people are thinking that 2020 was kind of like, all this stuff happened in 2020. But the truth is, some of the salon struggles and some of the strategy struggles that we've been dealing with in our beauty industry have been going on for more than a few years. 2020 just kind of really brought them to light. It's like, the tide rised and we all had to be able to look at this from a different perspective, and it forced us to be able to look at our businesses from a different perspective. But it also forced us to be able to say, we've got to be with the times. We've got to jump in with the times. And so the whole podcast is kind of based around a strategy and a framework that says if you strategically focus on some certain opportunities, some unique opportunities, 1 or 2 opportunities, not 27 opportunities, that you will then gain some level of success. And part of the strategy when we're talking about that is under these 5 categories of sales, operations, mindset, marketing, and education. So your business requires you to be somewhat of an expert in each of those areas. And so each week we take on one of these categories, one of these strategies, and we bring it to light, either myself or with guests, to be able to have some dialogue that can help you understand maybe what opportunities are out there for you, or maybe some insight to be able to look at things from a different perspective. Today, we're going to be in the sales category. And my guest today is Steve Reiss from SalonInteractive. And we're going to find out a little bit more about SalonInteractive in just a minute here. So I'm your host, Bonnie Bonadeo of the SOS Salon Business Coaching Podcast. In 2021, I will be celebrating 40 years in the industry. And that honestly makes me pause and think, what's changed? What's changed in 40 years in the industry and what hasn't? And there are a handful of things, and I bet Steve will be able to recognize some of them as we progress in a conversation, some things that haven't changed enough or maybe don't need to change with what we're doing as an industry, with what we're doing as salons. But the truth is a lot has changed. And our topic today is, preparing to tack. And as you guys know, my whole podcast is kind of built around sailing metaphors because I recently became a sailor, and then 2020 has prevented me from really getting out there and doing some good sailing. And with that, I really committed to understanding the language, because one of the things that when you learn something new, or you learn, you take on a new hobby, or you want to learn a new skill set, there's language attached to it. And I had to learn all new language. I had to understand what the language meant, because, when you're out on a boat, you don't mess around, and you got to make sure that you're being safe, and you got to make sure that you're protecting the crew. And that really aligns with what we're doing in our salons in 2020. You got to make sure that you're safe. You got to make sure that you're taking care of the crew. And this year has been one of those years where we've been tacking and jiving just about every week. We're closed, we're open, we're closed, we're at capacity, we might be closed again. And it's really kind of put us into that place where we're just always kind of like looking for that opportunity, looking for the wind to be able to kind of like keep us going, keep us in motion here. So we're going to talk a little bit about that wind in your sails, and we're going to reference the sails, of course, the sails from a sailboat, to sales in your business. And we're going to look at ways that you can create momentum and address the needs that your clients have, but also looking at ways that you can create more revenue sources. Because what we know to be true is that there isn't one business that just has one way of making revenue that's successful. Most businesses find multiple revenue streams in order to be successful. And this year was one of those challenging years where we had to get serious. If we couldn't service clients, how were we going to survive? Once we started able to service clients and we were only servicing them at a certain capacity, we weren't double booking, all of that stuff, how were we going to survive? And we had to get creative. And that was one of those opportunities where we looked for opportunities, wind, to be able to create the sales with us. Now, I know Steve Reiss for many years, and he's probably one of my favorite people. And I say that very with total endearment, because Steve was the gentleman that introduced me to my fiance, Jeff. And Jeff is an amazing guy, and I feel so honored to not only have met him, but to spent the last 5 years in a relationship with him. And this was the year that we were going to get married out on a sandbar in the island from the sailboat. And of course, all of that changed. So, Steve, you got a standing invitation to that wedding, right?
I have my bag packed.
I think everybody's got a bag packed right now. So we're going to look at, we've been talking about 2020 for a long time. I just saw some holiday decorations that came out that kind of summarized all of the things of 2020 on a holiday tree ornament. And it's kind of funny. I mean, I love that people have a sense of humor about it. I was talking with a couple of my clients today, and one of the things that we talked about was, what's the gift of 2020? Like, we can complain about it and we can, bitch about it and realize that we don't have a lot of control over it. But I'm always looking for what's that silver lining, what's that little halo around it. And so that's how I'm going to start with you, Steve, is what was the silver lining for you in 2020?
Silver lining was, I suppose you'd call it introspection. But if you look at our lives, all of us were running so fast and we were so committed to everything we were doing. I know for some of us, we seem to be at a different industry event virtually every single weekend. And it's very, very different now because I'm not going anywhere. When I communicate and connect with people, it's in ways like this. And it's forced me to think about what's important in my life, what I like, what I don't like. And when you're in the middle of everything, sometimes you don't have that perspective.
Yeah, it's true. I can agree with you on that. We were running really fast and we weren't paying attention to the details that continue to keep the momentum of success in place. We also weren't paying attention to the values, where respect, if you have clients that are coming to you, is there a mutual respect? Do they understand how to do business with you? And are you aware and value and appreciate how they're doing business with you as well? So I saw a lot of missing in that. So, I think 2020 did bring some introspective as well. And, I reference that to this analogy that I used here, back in the olden days, and I'm talking way older than me and you. Back in the olden days, there were no engines on the boats that traveled across the seas to discover new lands and places like America. There were only sails. And to think about it from that perspective, and it's like, people would be gone for months, because they would have to sail across the sea. And you can't just sail in a straight line across the sea. You got to find the wind, you got to tack, you got to jibe, you got to do all these things to be able to find the wind. So it's like a constant 2 steps forward, 1 step back, zigzag motion to be able to get across. So there were no engines, there were only sails. And today we have technology and engines and social media and Google and all of this other stuff. And I really think, and I saw this with a lot of my clients, they finally realized that they couldn't keep doing business the old way, that they had to shift to doing business the new way. They had to get a little bit more technologically savvy. They had to get a little bit more involved in what tools were available for them in order to create kind of that smooth sailing business operation that they had. Once, at one point when we could say that, oh, word of mouth was how I build my business and referrals, that's not the case anymore because we're not creating social interaction with people. So this is a big part of, I think, what we need to look at is, are we taking advantage of all the tools that we have access to? So we're going to take a deep dive with Steve Reiss from Salon Interactive, and we're going to look and find some treasures. Steve, you ready to go treasure hunting?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to treasure hunt above the water and below the water here, and we're going to look for opportunities to be able to do that. Now, first, I'd love you to tell us a little bit more about Salon Interactive.
So Salon Interactive is an e-commerce platform that was created specifically for the salon industry. And the history of Salon Interactive was the founder was a stylist. He became a very successful stylist, opened his salons, ended up owning a bunch of salons, and was looking for software to help run them remotely. He couldn't find it, so he created it. Eventually, he sold the salons to focus on technology. About 3 or 4 years ago, he became very, very concerned because he felt that salons were losing their fair share of the business to third-party players, especially online. And he felt that given the nature of the salon industry, which is very, very different from almost any other industry out there, and the people are very different, there was an opportunity to create a solution, a technology solution, but it had to be created by somebody who understood the industry and who passionately cared about the industry, and he was that person. So while at his software company, he created Salon Interactive, and then he went out in the market and he started telling people about it, and everyone said, wow, that's great, but as long as you own a software company, people are going to think you're just creating this to help sell your software. If you're really serious about this, you need to sell your software company and focus on this. And that's what he did the end of last year. In the beginning of this year, Salon Interactive was launched officially, and things were moving along. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit, salons were shut down, and all of a sudden, an opportunity for a salon to quickly and easily provide e-commerce to its customers, its clients, without having to inventory, without having to ship products, became really, really important. And we've grown pretty dramatically since then.
That's awesome. And you've been with Salon Interactives now for what?
Less than a year.
Less than a year. So, and you have a pretty rich history too, Steve. So, you've done a lot of things, besides being in the beauty industry for what, last 10 years? 12? 12 years? Yeah. I remember the first time I met Steve behind the stage at Naha. So at the time I was producing Naha, and he came behind the stage, and I think we just hit it off at that point. And you were new to the industry, but not new to being a savvy businessman, and knowing that the relationships that you foster and the connections that you make are what's going to help you to be successful in helping yourself in the industry, but also helping the industry.
Yeah, this industry, all industries are about relationships, but this one is especially so. And if you look at the nature of the relationship between the stylist, the salon, and their client, it's unique. It's something that every other business is jealous of. Mm-hmm. You have people who regularly come to you. They could choose lots of places to go, but they always come to you. They spend quality time with you. They share personal information with you. You are their friend. They are your friend. And ultimately, that's something very, very powerful. And the thing that I love so much about this industry is people who get into this industry don't get into this industry because they want to get rich and famous. They get into this industry because they're creative, because they're passionate, because they want to give back, because they like helping people. Lots and lots of good reasons. And what we're really focused on is how can you leverage those things which you've earned to help drive your business, because these are things you've earned and you deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Steve, where do you see, I mean, like I said, kind of on the onset of the podcast, some of the issues that are kind of like being thrown in our face right now, they didn't happen because of the pandemic. They didn't happen because of 2020. They were kind of staring us, down a little bit for the last couple of years. And what are some of those challenges that you see in the industry that now that if we're shining the light on them, we're probably far better suited to get past them, fix them, solve them?
Well, you're right. All the things that are happening were happening anyway. Uh, what happened was kind of a shock to the system, and it really accelerated things. So, for example, e-commerce, where we're active, uh, we heard that you had 5 years of progress in 6 weeks.
God, that's awesome.
Is a shock to the system. But if you look at the way the world was changing, technology was out there, and it's been out there a long time. Client behaviors are changing, and client expectations are changing. And the difference between our older and our younger clients was very pronounced. But you have to keep in mind that every year, more and more of our clients are the younger clients. So that's a
Hmm.
group that's just going to continue to grow. And because business was okay, I think a lot of people said, I really don't have to deal with this. It makes me uncomfortable to think about change. I'm going to kick the can down the road just a little bit. What's happened is that with everything that's happened, you can't afford to do that anymore.
Hmm.
That luxury and that margin of error just doesn't exist. So it's a huge threat because most salons are down, not all salons, most salons are down. On average, most salons are doing 70% of the business they were doing a year ago. But the reality is it's also a tremendous opportunity because everybody else out there is in the same boat, and they're
Hmm.
questioning their relationships and their behaviors and how they do things. And given the fact that we are so close to our customers and our clients and that we understand them so well, it's a unique opportunity for us to really forge a new relationship with them, which is going to allow us to be more successful. And the more successful we are, the more we can help them.
Yeah, that's true. I love what you just said, how we just accelerated this, fast tracked this ability for people to see that they need to be on board with technology. And we could all say, oh, I don't like social media, or I don't like this, or I'll never be on TikTok, or whatever the case is. But if it's a business building tool, then we are going to need to figure it out. If it's just honestly something that's very social, like Facebook started out to be very social, and you had to wonder, how the heck did Facebook become $1 billion company when I could go on there for free and communicate with my friends and post pictures of my dog? But eventually we saw the light, and the light was that it became an advertising platform. And that's the resource that businesses have. They can use it organically, or they can advertise on it. And, those type of platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, we have to get more savvy with them. We have to get more savvy with technology in general. And your business, Salon Interactive, is really kind of like filling a need of what we've been challenged with for a long time, which is, having inventory for retail, or being able to take care of our clients' needs on retail, but also being able to kind of bridge that gap between when they're not seeing us and when they still need something. Because I think the consumer doesn't think of the salon first when making those kind of purchases.
So Jim Bauer, who was the stylist who founded Salon Interactive, quotes Henry Ford all the time. And Henry Ford, a long time ago, said, if I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, because they couldn't really conceive a
Yeah.
car. It was something they couldn't really relate to. And I think it's the same thing for a lot of people in our industry. We deal with what's comfortable and what's familiar. The reality is there's a tremendous amount of uh, things out there we want and we need. If 10 years ago, somebody had said, do you need an iWatch? And they explained to us, I said, no, I have a watch, it works fine. The reality is now for millions of people, it's something you rely on for health and fitness, something
Mm-hmm.
you didn't even think about. Uh, with the salon industry, uh, we have to become better at making money. And the reason we have to become better at making money is because if we don't make money, all those other things we want to do to help and support our clients, the other people in our salons, our families, ourselves, we're not going to be able to do. So we have to look at the world out there and say, what are the things we can easily do that are consistent with the relationships we have, with the way we do things, with our perceptions, and start with things that are not that disruptive. So our focus at Salon Interactive has been, yes, we're an e-commerce platform, but our whole go-to-market strategy, I guess you'd call it, is to let stylists help their clients. Because we
Solve
know that
problems
just
for their
as much as
clients.
they hate selling, you love helping.
Yeah.
And your clients want your recommendations on products. And they want your recommendations on a whole host of things. And when you're not giving them that recommendation, or you're not providing